Hello, my name is Kai, Earth Spirit. Some of you know me as Blanca Iris Acuna. I'm a singer-songwriter from the Taino Nation in Borinquen, what you know as San Juan, Puerto Rico. I've been an activist for over 25 years in the conservation of our natural resources. Um, and I've been making a couple of videos about climate change. And I've been voicing for the last 10, 15 years about climate change. So finally, we got good news. The UN did set the alarm, a red flag for what's going on with our climate change. It was about time. They should have done it 10, 15 years ago, maybe even sooner than that. And the indigenous people have been sounding the alarm. About 20 years ago, the medicine people were telling our politicians that we needed to do something before it was too late. There was still 25 years ago that we still had time. And the politicians and the powers that be didn't want to listen. And now we are here in this amazing, witnessing the amazing power of Mother Earth and what is causing for many people to lose their homes, to lose their lives, and it's no laughing matter. Climate change is no laughing matter, and we still have so much to do when it comes to it, and I don't think the politicians or the government is going to allow that to happen. So it might be for each individual to come together as a neighborhood, as a county, as a town, as a state, and start pressing very hard our politicians about this matter, because they're going to take their sweet time. They're going to still want to make money and make profit. And sad to say, that's not going to take us where we need to go. We have stolen a lot of the natural resources of our children, of our grandchildren, due to greed, due to we need to have things now and not thinking about the future generations that are coming behind us. So the fact that UN set the alarm and makes it very real for most people, because just like this issue with Trump, the steal of the election, uh, they looked at climate change for over 20 years as a joke, as well, you know, the earth go through changes, so it's not our fault. Um, and they have allowed this problem to get so out of hand that the earth now is reacting towards us and destroying the world that we have built on top of her. And I, for one, think is well deserved, for not listening to her, for not listening to the wise people that came before us. And this is the thing, with all the racism that is going on and all the crap that brings into the table. Uh, we as a human race, every ancestor that have ever lived, white race, black race, indigenous, Asian, every ancestor have said the same thing. We need to respect the natural laws of this planet. And this has been written for hundreds of years. This is not a now issue. This is an issue that they were able to foresee. Our ancestors were able to foresee that we were coming as society that had such a disrespect for the natural laws and the animals and the plants and just the natural world. And so finally UN setting the alarm, which I think is super late. I think where they been, why they have not listened. Sorry, why they have not listened to scientists that know more than they do. This is the thing about people that need to be aware of. Politicians are not scientists. Politicians are not doctors. Politicians, sorry to say, I know there's some good people out there that want to do some good for humanity, but at least 70% of politicians are crooked. It's like a bad car salesman. And so we need to start listening to scientists and listening to the voices of our ancestors. The white race had ancestors, the Native American, the black, and every ancestor, they have left any messages for us for the future. And for the wisdom that they got is you have to honor Mother Earth. You have to honor it. And if not, you will wipe yourself out because this is a ecological system that is intelligent and knows how to survive and know what to do to survive. And we are like ants. We're very small in comparison to the planet. So the fact that we have such a disregard and such a, oh, I can control the ocean, I can control the earth, I can control the weather, um, and I'm a god at this, is delusional at best because the planet is so amazingly powerful and outrageously big and massive, and so we are like fleas on top of a dog. So people that are still saying today, which is insane, that climate change is a joke or is not important, um, you have another thing coming. So what can we do? We will have to hold production immediately. People that work in offices need to start working from home and try not to travel and suspend most of the traveling unless there's an emergency and ultimately or to serve your community somehow. And I think we are very late at the game right now. We're very late. Um, and if we could stop this massive destruction from the earth to our society, it will have to be immediate, almost like when COVID came and became a full blown pandemic. We need to stop everything. We need to stop producing things we don't need, things that will end up in the garbage anyway. We have stole so much from the future generations that it's going to take many generations to overcome what is happening at this point in time with the earth. Not only the ecological part, but the whole, how we going to have trade and monetary system and health system. So all these things come to the forth. At this point in time, I think if there was a message that I would like to leave for the younger generation is concentrate in your ecology, concentrate in trying to grow food in every area that you can, because food and water and medicine should be your next just three first priority. If you can have those three, the medicine, to keep the technology for the medicine and to keep um, trying to figure it out a way to take care of the people they are, struggling with their health. And and of course water. We only can live like 3 days without water, and then we die. And that's pretty much every entity in this planet, from plants to animals to insects to humans. Water is sacred. Um, we have a big problem with oil companies keep wanting to do fracking, even when they're sounding, UN is sounding the alarm for a stopping of fossil fuel. They want to keep fracking. They will continue. You see, this is where you could see that they could have done better. They could have become that, those companies that do other types of form of energy and become a pioneer in it. But they waited too long, and now we are like, it's either or. It's not going to be in between. So they still want to do fracking. They still want to do the fossil fuel thing, and we need to stop them because with the earthquakes and the storms, the earthquakes are going to get worse, and we're talking 9 and above, while the plates become displaced. A lot of cities are going to be destroyed. A lot of places are going to be destroyed. They're going to come sinkholes and all kinds of different earth changes. And this put us in danger more so of all the pipelines that are already set on the earth, all the pipelines that are already working. So we need a complete shutdown, because if you got multiple pipelines breaking all around the world, they're going to go into our water stream, and we are going to be in big trouble. Might as well take a gun and call it quits. And that goes for everybody. Even if you work in an oil company, imagine not having water to drink for you or your family. So we need to start shutting down all these pipelines, and we need to do it almost immediately, because if we continue and we don't do something about it, all our waters are going to be contaminated, and that's going to be a major, major problem. We need all these kids that have new technology and how to clean the ocean and how to transform plastic into another form of usage. And we need to halt with the plastic. We have enough bottles to last us a few thousand years. We need to find another way of refilling the things that we need. Um, it's strange because people have this, the whole thing with the Bible and Armageddon. Um, it's almost like people want this because they want some form of anarchy, and it will damage us more if we go into that blindly, or abandon any other system. Um, and so this kind of Armageddon is almost expected, and they think that somehow they can survive it if they have a shelter somewhere, and if they have food, and the earth is going to be shifting so much that we're not going to be able to stay in one place. It's going to be like, today we're good here, and tomorrow is a sinkhole, and we got to move from there to another place. So we are really at the mercy of Mother Earth at this point in time. We see the fires, we see the floods, we see the earthquakes and the storms. The interesting thing about the fires is that the scientists realize that all the fires are happening in the same latitude on the earth. Almost like if the whole equator all around the world was on fire. So all the fires that are occurring on the earth is becoming in the same latitude. So that tells the scientists that this is a volcano issue, this is magma issue, which is very serious. And that what I said before, that is the magma is right under our feet, right under the crust, and it's burning all these trees from underneath, it's drying them up, and then so this is happening all around the world. This is not just United States, this is global. And so, and the same with the floods. We had the floods in Germany, the floods in India. We have lost hundreds of people, and and that's not counting all the people that are going, they are displaced because the fires, because the flood. Um, and it will continue. This will get worse and worse and worse. And so people they are thinking, oh, how I'm gonna do my job and how, you know, we probably will. Those people they are not in this areas as the fires progress and the floods progress and the earthquake progress, we will have less and less land to work with and to stand up in it. And we're going to have a lot of homeless people migrating to the other states. Um, and this is very serious. I mean, life as we know it will be no longer. This whole thing with COVID going back to normal is not going to happen because the earth now is not only COVID and it's not only the Delta variant. The earth now is overheating so much that all these bacteria and all these different viruses um, are going to be part of the norm for us. Um, so, and the floods, I will say this to every town that has had a flood: do not construct again in that area because the river will continue progressively take more and more and more until it takes that whole area for itself. Um, our medicine people 20 years ago told us that we needed to move away from the ocean, the coastlines, the rivers, and the lakes. And the reason for that is because as the earth right now is um, 36 inches tilted. We have moved the sun. If you are a person that looks at nature often, you will notice that the sun is not coming out in the same place that it have been. And as the seasons rotate, we do have a little bit of change in that, but it's coming completely in a different place. And the same with the moon. So we have tilted 36 degrees, and this have caused for those states that maybe had a mild winter, all of a sudden they have a severe winter because they have gone up north. And those that maybe had cold winters are getting an extreme heat because they have gone a little bit more south. And we will continue to tilt. And so what we don't know is when, if it will tilt gradually all the way where we will see all these different land masses changing and seasons and stuff like that, or would it would be an abrupt shift. That we don't know. And so what we do know is that all the fault lines all around the world are becoming displaced. That means that they're separating itself and moving away from each other, or they're coming together and causing pressure and causing earthquakes. There are fault lines that we didn't even know that were there, due that we don't have any record or history of them being there. So all of a sudden, maybe we constructed a neighborhood on top of a fault line that we have no idea that it was there. Um, Recently, I think it was Florida had an issue with near Disney, if I'm not mistaken, with all of a sudden sinkholes due to a fault line that just appeared. And so, because there are no records of this ancient fault lines, we have construct neighborhoods in it, towns over it, and now that all the fault lines are being detached and displaced from each other, we're going to see a lot of sinkholes, a lot of issues with that type of situation. And so we need to be completely in sync of what's going on what information is coming to you about your area. Look for it, seek for it. Um, Please do not get caught in the religion part of it, because you're not going to get the facts. Look for people that are giving you scientific data. Look for your state. Look for your county. What is happening around your state, around your counties? Are they having problems with sinkhole? Is it an area that is flooding more than others? All this information, it will serve you. It will serve you well in protecting your family. Um, we had so many floods in Germany, India, Berlin, um, London, Mexico. Mexico was hit hard with a river came out of its course. And so as the water rises, the rivers are going to rise, the lakes are going to rise. Some of the lakes are actually drying. Some lakes are actually having sinkholes or volcanoes underneath. They are waking up. So all these things you need to be aware. If you're going to take a vacation and you're going to go somewhere, don't go blindly. Research what's going on in that area. The climate change are drastic, violent, and unexpected. And it's not something that you can completely predict, but you can see if they're getting a lot of floodings in that area, they're going to continue. The flooding is not going to get worse. So taking a vacation in that area is something that you need to do research. My son, I believe he's planning to go to Mexico. Mexico had a horrible, in one of their counties and towns, they had a horrible flooding because it was so close to a river. So all the rivers are going to go out of their course. Um, this is going to cause issues. Some places is raining what it would rain in 2 3 months is raining in one day. That's why we're having major floodings like that. So so if they have problems with weak dams and fragile electrical grid, these towns are going to have issues. So if you're going on vacation there, you might be trapped into a situation that you did not expected. Right now, the medicine people told us 20 years ago, and it told the scientists, we're seeing changes in the ocean. Even before scientists were looking into climate change, the indigenous people were already seeing. Indigenous people normally around the world are very in tune with what's going on with Mother Earth. We are that race that is more into the natural uh, part of our society, and we need to thank them, because somebody has to care about what goes on. And so the indigenous people and the holy people went to the scientists and said something is wrong with the ocean. The surfers, they were surfing the ocean, was telling the scientists there is something off with the ocean. Sometimes we're surfing and all of a sudden we see this boom of a wave that comes out of nowhere. Nobody can see it. And so uh, they believed that there was something going on with the plates under the ocean that was causing these sudden waves that will come out of nowhere, swells that will come out of nowhere. Um, so the indigenous told the science community, and so does the surfers, and still nobody listened. The UNID, about 10 years ago, told we're seeing the sun, the scientific community, they told them, we're seeing the sun in a totally different place than it used to be. Um, Animals have to migrate farther away to get food. We're losing animals left and right in the last 50 years. So all this is coming into this place of completely chaos and destruction of our way of being. And people think, oh, the world's going to end. The world is not going to end. What is going to end is is the way that we live our life, the way that we work, the way that we destroy the earth. And she will destroy every single building all over the world if she has to survive, if she is fighting to survive. A lot of people say, oh, you cannot put human feelings into a planet. We know her, indigenous people, we know her as our mother. A being that can create so much life has to have an immense uh, sense of consciousness and an immense sense of intelligence. And so for us to think that she doesn't feel, that she doesn't think, that she doesn't have consciousness, every single animal has consciousness. If we, scientists are finding things about the elements like fire and water and plants that are blowing our minds, and how everything has consciousness. So for us to think that the planet doesn't have consciousness, that is somehow some rock that is dead, is insane, because it creates so much life, it creates so much intelligence, so much consciousness. So even though it's a biological thing, right, that creates life, is too a conscious um, planetary system. So now we are in the position where we are going to be homeless. We are going to have to travel to drink, for water and for food. And this is coming. This is coming. And the third part of the shift is supposed to last 14 years. That's 14 years of major earthquake, massive tidal waves, and just the thing is going to go on, and get worse as we go. And so, for us to say, oh, we're artists and we want to make money, I think our monetary system is at the brink of collapse. And what we have to concentrate is how we're going to keep medicine going, technology that is serves for the well-being of humans and the earth, and how we are going to uh, get out of this chaos where we can help our children, because they're the ones who are left with this mess that we created. So, you know, one of the things that I said this in a previous video, one of the things that Sonigo, the holy man, that my spiritual father said to me is that our jobs, as it is right now, is trying to take our children to a place that they can survive, that they can survive this catastrophe that we created for them. And we all created it. We were all part of it, because as long as we are consumers, we are part of it. And most of us live a very humble and traditional life, and we don't go buying crazy stuff that we don't need, because we got wiser, or we understand better, that we have a part in it. But there's a lot of people that still in that mode of, I gotta be rich, I gotta consume, and a world of consumption. And so that world is ending. If it's here a year or two, it will be a miracle. And so what is coming is a complete breakdown of our system. Scientists think that maybe, like UN now put the red flag, they should have put it 20 years ago, when the scientists were telling them that we needed to slow down. They didn't listen to us, so now we are in this. Now they set the alarm, and they think that maybe if we do something drastic, it will slow down the process. Yeah, I think we need to complete stop of production of everything, cars, cellulars, everything, and every planet, every continent, and every country needs to go along with it. If you can do that, that's half of the problem. The other half is stop producing things that you don't need. And how can we get people to work from home, to maintain some sort of order? And then is the thing is we need to plant. We need to plant food in every yard, every house. We should not have just lawns. And enough with the pesticides. We are killing so many animals with the pesticide, and the pesticide is going in our food, is going in our bodies, it's going in the water, is poisoning us, is poisoning our system. Enough with the pesticides. We throw away so much food. There is no need for pesticides. Pesticides is the biggest scam ever known to mankind. Is the biggest scam, and I tell you why. Because half of our food end up in the garbage because people don't buy it, because there's more food than people, and we end up with this waste of food that nobody eats. Not the homeless, not the dogs in the street. It's just going in the garbage. So that proves right there that it's enough for everybody, even for the animals. So what we're doing with the pesticides is actually a backfire, because not all the birds that eat the insects have died. So now we're going to have more insects than ever. I was driving to the city with my husband, um, and we live in the country in the middle of nowhere in farmland. And we have not seen birds. We only seen, we got two couples of hummingbirds. Normally, our backyard was so many birds, it was insane. You couldn't even hear your thoughts because they were constantly chirping. And there were all kinds of different birds that will migrate, use our backyard for a night or two, and they will take off. We've seen so many cardinals, blue jays, mappies. We've seen birds from every part of the United States that will come migrating back and forth. And now we don't see any songbirds. We have not seen a blue jay or a cardinal. We have not seen a mappy. We are just stunned that here in the country there are no birds. And so we went to the city for a doctor's appointment, and what we saw was that all the birds were in the city. And I said, how can this be? There are more birds in the city than in the farm. And I said, because the pesticides, the pesticides is keeping them away, because they're dying. And so the smart birds are deciding to stay in the city, because in the city they don't use as much pesticides than in the country. And so it's insane. It's insane. Now we don't have any birds to eat the bugs in the country. And so this greed that man has, this feeling that they get that there's not enough for all of us. The creator doesn't make any mistakes. I think there were more people back in the day than what is now. I think with no TV, no internet, our great grandparents had 14, 17 kids. I think there were more people back then than what is now. We're having less children. So how come we are getting overpopulated when people are having less children? So that's one of the big lies that the big man says to us. No, in the time of our great grandparents, a couple could have 14, 17 kids. There were more people back then. We were just not as concentrated as we are. I think the other problem with the United States too is that so many people come here to live here that that how is it? It is overwhelming to our economical system. And this is not only the undocumented, this is the documented as well. I went to Virginia a couple years ago. I used to live in Virginia near Washington, D.C. And for like 10 years, I left and I came back to visit. And I was stunned that Northern Virginia, most of the people that live there are from India or from Costa Rica or from another country, Iran. And I was stunned that there was so many people that were from other countries. So that's the issue too. It's not that we are overpopulated as a world. is that we are populating areas, and it becomes a financial struggle with that area, with those areas. But now we are in this time where uh, we might not have a land to stand on because the land has been fracked so much. In my other videos, I'm talking about fracking. Um, that everything, the plates are moving, the magma is moving, so everything is going to be very unstable under our feet. The scientists and the indigenous people believe that the safest place to be, it will be in the Great Creton. In United States, there in every continent there is a piece of the landmass that is the most steady. It's kind of like the center, or the steady ground, and everything else kind of is a little bit more shifting, and it grows and expands, and it moves away from the major mass. So in the United States, that steady land mass would be the Great Creton, and everything outside the Great Creton, it would be considered dangerous to live because the plates are shifting away from the Great Creton. The Madrid Fault Line, which it comes all the way from Maine all the way down to Texas, and San Andreas Fault, right? That is one of the major ones in the West. Um, they are moving away from the Great Creton. That's why we're having so many earthquakes. The volcanoes are waking up. We think is due to the solar flares. Is causing for the volcanoes to become activated. So if you are in the Great Creton, you have better chances of survival than the rest of the crust of the United States continent. Uh, but of course, this is tricky too because all the fault lines that are coming up that we didn't know that were there, and sinkholes that might take place. So, like I said again, I do believe that we're going to go back into being primitive again, or nomads. No, not primitive, but you know, have to travel for food and have to travel to find water. So, right now, I think the most pressing need, which is we've been doing for the last uh, 15 years trying to stop these pipelines, is to go to each company and say, we demand that you shut this down because there's the water has more probability now to be contaminated due to the earthquakes that are taking place all over the world. Um, Oklahoma, the only time they had earthquakes um, is when they were doing fracking. Now Oklahoma is having earthquakes on the daily basis, and is because the Madrid Fault Line that goes in the middle of Oklahoma is separating itself from the Great Creton. So the Puerto Rico at this point in time is in a very, very dangerous situation. Both fault lines, the north and the south, are just being displaced, and this can cause a pretty significant earthquake in Puerto Rico. And we are having you in prayers. Most of my family's there, my son, family, and friends. And so if you can move to the United States, please do. Make sure that it is within the Great Creton. Educate yourself about the volcano in Yellowstone, because we cannot move very close to Yellowstone. We should not move near the coastlines or rivers. I'm going to do another video, but this one showing what's going on around the world, and what what can we do to start preparing ourselves. When I said have your camping gear ready, uh, you might never use it. Okay, most of us are not going to see half of the stuff that is going on with the earth, and we need to be real about that. Either because we don't have any money to move, either because we are in a very dangerous area, either because we have health issues that require certain help, and we might not be able to get assistance. But if you have children and grandchildren, you should try as much as you can to survive as long as you can to help them. And so you need to have a camping gear, start educating yourself into survival. People that have shelters and have created shelters or on the ground shelters, some of them might work. But like I said, the earth is going to be shifting and moving and sinking and lifting. I'm going to show you some videos about that's exactly what has been happening. I used to tell this to people before, and they used to laugh at me and say, okay, you're crazy. But now they see what I've been trying to say. It's very hard to explain something that you're seeing in visions, and that for people don't want to stop working. People don't want this life that we have created to end. And so because they're still young, they want things for their lives. And and I understand that type of thinking. Um, and people didn't want to believe the indigenous people either. So when these visions started rising, and um, you might have created a shelter on the ground that have cost you thousands of dollars to create. You have food and water in there, and something the ground might collapse right underneath. So, because the earth is going to be shifting, moving, rising, going down, water, it's going to be difficult to be in one place. It's going to be difficult to stay in one place for long periods of time. For now, we probably can stay where we are until the alarms goes off. And we have to be vigilant of what's going on in your state and in your country, in your vicinity. Um, it's very hard to explain something that we're seeing coming. We see it coming. Years ago, we started having these visions of what was coming. And now already is on us. And how you prepare people that didn't want to listen to you in the first place. Um, I believe that the tribal community, tribal leaders need to get together, and this needs to happen immediately, and get together and figure it out how you're going to grow food, how you're going to store water, um, and concentrate on your agriculture and your way to have water and shelter. We're going to have a lot of homeless displaced from other states. This is going to be a major issue with health and supplies and stuff like that. Um, some people say get guns. I don't want to kill anybody. I hope doesn't come to that. But people that are not spiritual, people that have not been following through with the climate change, people that wants to still hold on to capitalism and jobs, are going to have a very hard time with this. So we're going to see a lot of that. And we have to protect our women and our children. So the tribal community, the leaders need to come together and make sure that women and children are protected, and that you have food for your community and water for your community. and where you at in your community. If you're in a danger zone, what can you do to move your tribe elsewhere, and perhaps with the help of other tribes. So the sad part of that is the displacement of not knowing where we're gonna go, how we're gonna work, and how we're gonna survive. So I think if there's any change that can be done at this point in time with climate change, it would be a complete halt in production of cars, production of cellulars, and concentrate in agriculture and medicinal plants, and how to convert water into, convert maybe water that have been contaminated into water to drink. Um, this floods, people say, oh, well, water, if you have floods, then there's still water. But when there's a flood, water becomes contaminated with sewage water, with other toxins, and it's just very, very dangerous situation for anybody. I'm gonna make a video of the things that are been happening in the last couple of weeks around the world with climate change, and we will continue to provide some sort of information. There is a fear that as the climate change continues and people start going into a state of panic because it's maybe touching their lives, maybe there are destruction in their towns and in their areas, that it become worse and eventually they will turn off the internet. I don't know if that's true or not. I think that would be very cruel, especially if you're going through some sort of cataclysm. But at the same time, I feel that if the solar flares continue, we might lose the internet due to climate change and to the solar flares, not necessarily because they're turning off the internet. So there's no end in sight. Um, I feel like my generation knew that we were going to see the beginnings of this. I feel that it's something that we always knew in the back of our heads. We People have warned us, our ancestors have warned us, and so we're not going to see everything, but we are going to see the beginnings of it. It is our children and our grandchildren who have to survive it. So sorry. Um, the fact that we are here now, it seems surreal to me and is sad. I fear for my children. I fear for my grandchildren. My oldest daughter right now, she's expecting her second child, and I'm like, what kind of world are they gonna have? How tragic that we have done this to their lives and to their world. We bring them here to give them a world in chaos and torment and just ecological disaster. But there's still people that still want to do fracking. They still want to fight about things that are not important at this time, to keep this um, social decay going. So, when I think of that, I think of the children and I'm like, oh my God, there are no words right now. All we can do is try to stop this train that is already collapsing with houses along the way. And so we need to unite, people that work for pipelines, people that work for the government, military and police. We need to unite and do this for the children of the earth. We need to close down the pipelines. if we, especially areas that are getting a lot of earthquakes, we're going to have a natural disaster worse than what we can imagine if we don't. This is, I mean, you didn't listen to anything that we said before, so I don't expect you to listen to this. But if there is any consciousness inside of you, I mean, the United Nations is already setting the alarm. This should make you think seriously and stopping the pipelines. Because if all the water and every single pipeline is gets busted, and they always do, every single every single pipeline that has been created has busted at one point. If these earthquakes continue, when this earth not if when this earthquake continues, we're going to have major issues with lack of drinking water because of the pipelines. And that is just unacceptable in every way. So we need to unite with this, with our leaders. And I hope everyone goes in the boat with this, because nobody can live without water. Our bodies only can be without water for 3 days, and then it's a horrible death after that. So please unite. Forget about racism. Forget about uh, making money right now. Be a hero and start demanding to these corporations to shut down in areas that are earthquake prone, because as we progress, as the earth keeps shifting and progressing, it's going to get worse and worse. For 14 years, it's going to be like being inside of a washing machine. So all these pipelines are going to bust, and all this movement, and we need to make sure they are shut down. They are uh, locked, so we don't have a worse disaster where we already have. So I'm going to make a video of what's going on this week, us talking and showing what can be done to help the earth. Thank you for listening me. Thank you for listening to me. We continue giving information as long as we can.